Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, you couldn't have joined at a better time because I've just bought myself a Land Cruiser Prado. This is my 1999 VX90 series that I've just picked up from its original owners, and if what they say is true, the only off-roading it's ever done is with me driving into this bit of dirt for the footage you're seeing now. It's sitting at 323,000 kilometers, which is about average for one of these, and I've decided I want to own it for a bit longer than I normally keep my cars because I like the character of it and I want to get it to 384,400 kilometers, which is the distance to the moon. No real reason, I just think it would be a cool goal. And I have no doubt it'll make it because it's powered by the famously bulletproof 5VZ FE V6. If you're watching this in the US, you'll be familiar with this engine in your 4Runners and Tacomas, and it's been maintained just enough to stay roadworthy over the years. But in order to get to the moon as smoothly as possible, we've still got a bit of work to do. Let me walk you through it. Got a couple of leaks underneath. It looks like the oil pan, but that's usually rare on this engine because that sump is bonded to the underside of the engine with a sealant instead of being a removable gasket. I need to check out in case it's the rear main seal. Might need to take the gearbox off. There's definitely also a leak from the transmission oil pan. Got a new gasket and a filter kit for that. The shifts are kind of rough as well, so new filter and fluid. Hopefully we'll sort that one out. There's a bit of clunking and knocking around when I'm changing between drive and reverse or from park into a gear. That's usually just transmission or engine mounts, so I've ordered a new set of them to sort that out. I've also got some vibration during braking. That's going to be a warped brake rotor somewhere. I'm guessing front because they just look rougher than the back, but we'll take all the wheels off and have a look. Need to also take a look at the timing belt and the pulleys. I can hear one squeaking and I don't know when the belt was last done, so we need to have a look at that. This thing also really badly needs a wheel alignment. The steering wheel is just completely crooked, kind of just picking an angle based on vibes rather than proper geometry, so we'll get that dialed in. And I think all the shocks are completely blown out. The ride's pretty bad on this thing, but I'm going to do a lift kit so we can take care of that then and check all the bushings as well and make sure they look okay. And the brake pedal has way too much dead travel at the top. It's really, really spongy and the fluid looks black. So I'll just completely flush all of that. And if we're doing new discs and pads, at least on the front, then everything should be sorted there. So other than those wrinkles, this thing is a really good example of how 25 years can load up any car with a lot of small problems, even if it is a Toyota. This old school power antenna doesn't go up and down anymore. The gear shifter is super wobbly. The tailgate handle's fallen off at some point and it looks like it wants to do it again, to be honest. Somebody's backed into a wall here on the left side. The wiper blades are starting to develop their own little ecosystem. The spare tire is 15 years old and completely useless. The headlights are fogged over and don't really do anything at night. Some of the gauge cluster bulbs are burned out. These are incandescent bulbs and not LEDs, so we need to pop those out and replace some of them. The passenger door doesn't close properly. The driver's seat foam is completely dead and super uncomfortable. I get a sore back after about 3 minutes of driving at the moment. And of course, a lot of cosmetic minor things like I mentioned, especially with all these flares and bumpers scratched up. Some of them are held in with wood screws. It's rough. But none of these things annoy me, and they're actually part of the reason why I bought this car in the first place, because I think it's going to make for a great project and a really transformative before and after. Very first order of business, I want to remove this nudge bar because I'm sick of looking at it and might be able to recoup a little bit of the spend and buy some other mods if I sell it. I have no idea how heavy it is. I don't think it's too bad because it looks like aluminium, but I don't know, and I don't want to bend up the brackets when I release the first side. So we're just going to do this. Doesn't feel that heavy. Let's see. Yeah, it's fine. Yes, that is much better. The jack stands I had didn't even touch the frame on their tallest setting, so I went out and bought the biggest, baddest stands I could find. These are Tool Pro's most overkill offering, and the set of 4 I bought can support up to 10,000 kilograms, which should be plenty for a Prado, but the other important thing for me was that the saddle on these is wide enough to fit around the frame rails, meaning no matter how much I shake the car while working on it, it's not going to slide off. Let's have a look at this timing belt. Ooh, that's old. Take a look at this. This guy is on the way out. Yeah, full of cracks. Needs to be replaced. Now, the nice thing with this engine is it is a non-interference engine, which means even with the valves fully open and the pistons all the way at the top of their cycle, they won't touch. So if you do lose your timing belt, it's usually not going to write the engine off. You just put the new belt on, get it back in time, and away you go. But that doesn't mean we can just leave this timing belt on here, because if it does snap, I'm stuck. Does not look like rear main seal leaking to me. Absolutely bone dry. I would have thought we'd see oil on the flywheel here if the rear main was leaking. Am I wrong? I don't know. Leave a comment. After a bit more digging around, I found that the power steering rack was also leaking from both boots, so that had to come out as well. Ooh. Hello. All right, 3 hours later. What the hell? Huh. Okay, we're gonna have to get a bit creative with that one. Okay, well, that hasn't worked. Finally, dude. Who would have thought you would need an air chisel to remove a drain plug? That is ridiculous. And I will need to find a new drain plug. Ideally with an external hex socket like the back and everything else on the car. If you're an engineer and you're watching this, I'm really curious to know why this is an internal hex and everything else is external hex. These are like an Allen key style. So if you know the answer, tell me. I really want to know why this choice was made. Or maybe they've both been replaced. I don't know. But anyway. Okay, this should come out. Then we just need the pry bar at the back. There you go. CV axle. This is why I have removed it. You can see the boot there is about to explode. And when it does, it lets dirt in and then it ruins the joint inside. So we're just going to reboot it. I'm going to try and do it without disassembling it because mechanically there's nothing wrong with it, so I don't really want to touch it. Does it just pull out? Okay. I had borrowed this, which is a CV boot expander. You basically put the boot over here and it'll open up with air pressure and you can slide it over a built axle. Didn't realize it just slides off. So now we'll just do it properly. So these come with their own grease tubes, different type for some reason. I have read that the inside grease and the outside grease are a different grade. I have a feeling it literally doesn't matter at all. And I also have a feeling, no disrespect to this brand, but you can only assume this is probably the cheapest possible grease they could include. So I'm gonna use my own and have more of it anyway. This looks a little bit scarce to fill up this whole thing here. And I don't want to mix grease, so we're just going to use this Penrite for the entire thing. A little tap as well. Beautiful. Get this axle back in. Generally, if you needed a pry bar to get your axle out, you'll need a hammer to get it back in. Just compress it as much as you can to get it as straight as you can. There you go. Spin the hub nut on just a couple times to protect the threads when you're hammering it. Tuck back in here. Good.
Perfect.
Oh, that's gone. See you later. PCV, check valve, something? I don't know.
Mitsubishi belt on the Toyota.
Dead.
Right, I'm going to show you a little trick I learned on how to remove a harmonic balancer bolt or a crankshaft pulley bolt, whatever you want to call it. People will say you need to take the starter out and lock it at the flywheel, or you need a counter holding tool or something. You don't need any of that. You just need one of your old belts that you just took off. In my case, I'm choosing the least cracked one that'll have the most grip. I'm going to hook it around the right side of the pulley like that because I'm loosening it to the left and we want tension on that side. Then I'm going to take my recovery strap. I'm going to pull this nice and tight and just wrap it around the frame a couple of times. And then just take your breaker bar and your socket, it's a 19 in this case. And there you go. Look at the state of this down here. May also have a leak from one of the camshafts here, but it looks old. But this timing kit comes with new seals for everything, so we'll just do it all. Definitely a leak down here though, and just so much crud and sludge. Like you can barely even tell that this is supposed to be an electrical connector, but it is. That one's alright. Could reuse it, but obviously won't. That one's alright as well. But we've got a whole new set to go on. Had to make a little tool to get this crank thing off, whatever it's called. Oh, it's not very good, is it? It's just going to break. No. Alright, she's off. Guys, I don't know how big this channel will get. I don't know how polished and high budget the videos will be, but I want to make sure I include some realism regardless of where I end up, because nothing annoyed me more when I was first learning to work on cars. Seeing videos of people doing a job in 5 minutes and then it took me 2 days just made me feel super incompetent. For this video, the realism here is this took me, what time is it? It took me 4 hours to get this off. Not 4 hours straight because I had to go to the shops and get a new tool and take a break, but I came out here at 11 AM and started working on this, and it's now 3 o'clock. We've only just gotten it off. The reason that was so difficult to remove is because you can see all this dried coolant here. This is red. The coolant's currently green, so this is from ages ago, but it's clearly dribbled down onto the crankshaft and it rusted it in place. So I'll make sure I clean this up before I put it back together so that the 480,000 kilometer belt change is nice and easy. Before I start taking these seals and the water pump out, let's unload a can of brake cleaner on the front of this engine so that the dirt doesn't get inside. All right. Got a new water pump here, made in Japan. You may as well do this because it's pretty cheap and it was included in the kit that I got. I think on its own it's about $60, so not a big deal. But it has a paper gasket, which I'm not a huge fan of because it's kind of just outdated, old school tech. It's also a little bit bent out of shape. It's not creased, so it should be fine, but it's just a bit wavy. So what I'm going to do is put a layer of this Permatex former gasket on both here and on the other side of this, just to fill any little imperfections that might be on the pump, on the block, or crevices in the paper gasket here. The O-ring on the dipstick here is another potential suspect. Ooh, wow. Yeah, is dead. There's another suspect for leaks down near the bottom of the engine. Need something around 10 mil ID. Should be about right. It's not going to be a catastrophic leak if this isn't perfect, so I'll just watch it, see how we go in the next few days. A little bit of silicone spray to improve our chances here. Alright, let's do this crank seal. Going to extremely carefully drill a very small hole in it. Okay. For reference, that was a 2 mil hole, and this, I'm going to say a 6G screw. New seal, and we just want to put a tiny bit of oil on the inside and outside ring. Tiny dab on the crankshaft as well. Then you need to find yourself a socket or something that will fit over to tap it in. This is from a bushing repair kit, and it's the perfect diameter, but it's a little bit too short, which is a bit of a joke. But I've printed a little extension for it. So that will slide over, and I've flared out the bottom as well so that it will hit the front of the block here and not over compress the seal. And then just feel around, make sure it's nice and even and it's flush. And that's it. I'm gonna get the mic up nice and close here so you can hear that ridge as well as seeing it. This seal wasn't installed fully. Just going to put a tiny bit of copper grease on the crankshaft here for whoever does this job next. When you're installing your timing belt, you want to pay attention to the direction of rotation, and you want to make sure that all the slack is right above the tensioner, and I'll show you what I mean. Start up on this camshaft, keeping it nice and tense. Loop it around the water pump. So when I tighten that up and release the pin, it'll pick up the slack here and it won't move the positions of the two cams relative to the crank. Let's do 2 revolutions here to make sure everything stays in time and runs nice and smooth. Actually, I should take my spark plugs out first. Alright, let's try that again. Should be able to see that notch is lined up with the cover there. Same on this side. And down here you can see that little pink line and the circle lines up with that triangular notch on the block. My torque wrench doesn't go high enough for the crank bolt, so I've just done the apprentice special and sent it on with the impact gun. Let's give this thing a belting. This brown section of the gasket here is where coolant flows through the block, and that is gone. Glad I'm taking care of this. I almost didn't because it didn't look like anything was leaking and I kind of wanted to leave it alone, but I thought, you know what, the gasket kit came with it. Let's just do it while we're here. Happy I made that call. Before I put these injectors back in the car, I want to refresh them a little bit with some new seals and also by cleaning them out. This is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to pull off the old seals and these 2 O-rings. Top and bottom O-rings are the same size. You can fish them off with a pick tool or split them and just pull them away like that. Then we need to get out this little filter in the top of the injector, and to do that you can just use a machine screw. Wind him in a little bit and just grab some pliers with a notch in the end there so you get a good hold on it. And we will just wiggle it side to side gently. That filter should pop out just like that. Nice and simple, just using a couple pieces of hoses and some heat shrink to get a hose that will fit over the inlet of the injector all the way down to the spray nozzle of this, because we need it to be a little bit pressurized for this to work. And I'm going to just hook the injector up to a benchtop power supply I have. You don't need a benchtop power supply, you can just use a 9-volt battery or a car battery. But because I have this power supply, I may as well use it. I'll give it a tap just to make sure it's working. Get a little bit of pressure built up with this throttle body cleaner, and I'll tap it once. Pressurize it again. Tap it again. A little bit better. And as I repeatedly tap and clean this, you'll see the spray pattern becomes more of a fine mist. this will run better in the car for sure. This engine uses what's called a waste spark ignition system, and basically just means instead of a coil on each cylinder, there's a coil on a pair of cylinders. And instead of going off once every 2 revolutions, they go off every revolution. And that doesn't do anything to affect or improve the way the engine runs. All it means is instead of having 6 coils, you have 3, so it's half as many parts, half as many things to go wrong, and they're a bit cheaper to replace. But what it does mean is now your spark plugs are going off twice as often as normal. So to get around that, this engine specifies dual tip or twin ground spark plugs, basically to make them last twice as long. Now if you put normal single electrode spark plugs in this engine, it'll probably run fine, but they'll just last half as long as you'd expect because they're going off twice as often as normal. So we're using twin ground spark plugs. These need to be gapped to 1.1 mil. They were about 0.7 out of the box, so definitely worth checking that. While I'm on the topic of double spark plug related stuff, if you've ever seen an Alfa Romeo engine with twin spark written on top of the engine cover, that is actually a completely different system. Those engines use 2 individual spark plugs per cylinder, and that does have an effect on ignition and give you more spark, unlike this stuff, which is just a durability thing. You guys probably saw when I pulled the PCV valve out of the engine, it cracked off, and this hose is also really dead. And there you go, snaps. So I ordered this new one, but the weird thing is it has the right part number, but it's completely the wrong shape, and it says it's a water hose on the package. I just don't really know what's going on, so we're going to disregard this. Luckily, I had some spare hose lying around. This is the right size, and it's also rated for fuel and oil. It's not formed to the shape, but it's a very direct route, and there's really nothing wrong with doing this when you can't find the right part. As long as it doesn't kink and it's made of the right material, it'll be fine. Get that siliconed up a little bit as well. It actually looks pretty good for 14-year-old ATF, but of course, it's not as good as brand new stuff. There you go. Steady. Something interesting with the transmission oil pan here. So I've got the car basically level, and I drained out as much as I could with the drain plug. This is how much fluid was still in the pan, almost 3 liters, about 2.5 liters of fluid. When you're refilling this transmission, normally it's a 2-liter drain and refill, but with this extra 2.5 liters, we're gonna do 4.5, and obviously we'll check the dipstick and do everything we're supposed to do there, but that should get us in the ballpark. These magnets look pretty good. I wiped the sludge off a couple of them. I'll get them cleaned up properly. We'll clean up all this gasket material here, put the new filter in, and we can seal it back up. That does not look the same. Does this look compatible to you? I think one has 3 ports and the other has 2. Here we are a couple days later, and I finally have the right filter with 3 ports. So let's install this. I'm using these zip ties here to keep the gasket in place while I get some of these through. I managed to find an off-the-shelf drain plug for the front diff with a far superior external hex design, but it didn't have a built-in magnet like the old one. These magnets are important in diffs and gearboxes because they collect the metal filings that wear off the gears and help keep the fluid clean. So I just gave it a quick upgrade with a magnet I found stuck on the side of a toolbox. I'm going to tighten it to about there so it doesn't need a air hammer to remove next time. Before you crack loose the drain plug, always make sure you can crack the filler plug loose, because if you can drain it but you can't refill it, then you're screwed. That's good there. I had two options when it came to the steering rack: buy an aftermarket seal kit for $217 and rebuild the factory one, and then also go out and buy new tie rod ends and bushings for it, or buy an entire aftermarket steering rack with the tie rod ends for $230 and save myself probably about 6 hours as well. I'll let you guess which option I went with. New bushings for the sway bar here, and just take note, these brackets are side specific. Bit of silicone grease or something similar inside the bushing here is good as well. Sometimes you'll replace a part and then find out you didn't actually need to, the problem was something else. So it's nice when you diagnose something correctly. This is one of the old engine mounts. They're extremely split. Thought it'd be funny if I just put a bar on it and ripped it. This oil cooler is next on my hit list. If you own this engine and you got a lot of oil running down the side of your block, check this thing out. That is plastic. Yeah, that's one of the worst seals I've ever seen, condition-wise. Ring O. Now I also bought, I thought, a new washer for this banjo bolt.
but it doesn't actually come off. It's like one unit. So I don't know if you're supposed to buy an entire new bolt. This only comes from overseas. It's going to take several weeks to get here from Amayama. That's the only place I can really find one. I'm just going to clean it. I'm going to scuff this to give it a nice fresh surface. Put it back on, and we'll just keep an eye on it. If it does leak, I'll get a new bolt. It's quite easy to access, luckily. This is the filter that came with the car, and it's really clean. So we're just going to reuse it for now. No need to swap it out. Clean MAF sensor here. .2 litre oil capacity for this engine. 5W30 is going to be the most common oil spec for this engine, but for my climate, 10W30 is actually a little bit better based on what the owner's manual says, so I'm using that. We never really get below 0 degrees Celsius here where I live, so we can go a little bit thicker for the winter rating. When I'm working on a car over multiple weeks or even months, I like to keep some sort of note on the steering wheel to remind myself which fluids I have and haven't refilled. I like to think I wouldn't start an engine with no oil in it, but when you're doing 50 different jobs and repairs, you can start to lose track of things. For brake bleeding, normally you start at the furthest caliper from the reservoir and just use a vacuum bleeder like this or some sort of two-person method. After failing at this for about half an hour, I decided it might be a good idea to read the Haynes manual I bought, where I found out that I needed to start at the closest caliper and rely on the ABS pump to flush the fluid, which it did automatically after pumping the pedal and opening the bleeder valve.
I feel like I'm doing something wrong. It's just infinite bubbles. Go ahead, press the brakes. And then this ABS pump is running and supposedly just does that. Okay, and we already got a stream with no bubbles. Good. Immediately. And it's turned off. And I think that's a wrap. Okay, and release. Bleeds really quickly. But that's good, there's no bubbles now.
And with that, all 8 fluids in the car have been replaced.
This thing needs new wiper blades, but while I'm at it, I think I'll just repaint the arms because they're looking a bit scab. While this is open, let's spray the wiper linkages with some white lithium grease. I only found one little spot of rust here under the whole panel, which is great. So I'll just brush it off and spray it with some rust converter, and then we can put it back together. This rear wiper doesn't even have a blade on it anymore, so let's get rid of that. The issue with this switch is pretty simple. This tab's broken off, so the switch will pop in, but it's quite easy for it to wiggle its way out. I can't see any reason why I'd be needing to remove the switch from the trim in the future, so I'm just going to use some plastic repair mesh and slide it behind the tab, and then I'm going to weld it all together so that it's one unit. One more interior job I want to take care of is this dodgy shifter, and aside from just feeling like crap, it's actually so imprecise that I often pick the wrong gear when I'm trying to shift, so I want to see if I can fix it with the bushings underneath. I have this little kit which is supposedly going to replace the bushings in here that have worn out. I can't explain why, but I have a feeling this is going to be completely the wrong part and completely useless. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just do. So let's get this off and just see what we're working with. Unscrew this guy. 2 Phillips heads on the back of this. If we're being technical, these are probably not actually Phillips heads. They're probably that Japanese equivalent, but looks like Phillips head. Just get rid of this little broken clip. Same on the other side. Alright. Jeez, this is a mess. I think the problem is here. I'll show you. You can see how much this moves around and wobbles. It doesn't take much movement at the pivot point for there to be heaps of play up at the top end of the gear selector. Let me give you a proper close-up. You can see the dust of where that bushing used to exist. On this side, looks like it was black for some reason. Don't know why they're different. Oh, So much dust. So I'm hoping I can just take off that nut and tap out this, and then we can replace it. 13mm nut, which is a bit weird on a Toyota, but anyway. That will come out. Okay. Now what? This blue one looks like it's about the right size, but I've only got one in here. Kind of don't want to open it unless I'm certain, because this was $30 and I obviously need two. I need one on each end. Hyundai, Nissan, Mazda, Subaru, Toyota. I feel like they've just chucked in some random bushings. Maybe you need one kit, maybe you need two. $60 for two little plastic bushings? That is ridiculous. So, 3D printer. Good morning. I have nylon printed bushings. I'll probably put these on my site just in case they're helpful to anybody, but I also know it's a very cheap, small part, and depending where you live, the shipping and potentially tariffs will make it completely not worth buying. So I'll probably also just put the print file up for a very small fee. You can buy it for, I don't know, $3 or something, download it and print it locally, or if you have your own printer, you're sorted. Press that one in. Probably a little bit of silicone grease on the outer faces as well as inside, just so they don't grind themselves into dust. Like that. A bit on this bolt for the same reason. Okay, this is a lot better now. I haven't screwed this shifter in, so it's not fully tight, but you can see already there's no play in it. And it shifts quite well. But now I'm just finding the play up at the top end, but the other linkage is kind of annoying. So I might try and do something about that as well real quick. Perfect. I'm gonna put this on my site, downloadable version and a physical version that I can mail out to you if anybody needs it. That works super well. The overdrive off light is up in here somewhere. My theory is because the owners didn't really know much about the functions and features of the car. Like for example, when I was test driving it, I switched it into low range and the owner didn't know what I was doing. He had never used the lever before, and so I had to explain to him what it did. But anyway, I think it lived as a 3-speed with overdrive off its whole life and then left it that way. And because that bulb was on the entire time, it's just burnt out. It's gonna be one of these three. I'll lay them out in order. Oh, there's a burnt one. And there's a good one. And if I shine my flashlight in that middle slot, yep, that's the one. So overdrive is that middle of the three lights, and that was a bulb that was burnt out. That's my theory confirmed. The other one I'm noticing not seeing is the airbag light. Let's try and find him. I think this is the airbag bulb here. I'm not sure how well you can see, but that also looks fried. These little guys I think are a T3, so I'll have to buy some T3s, but I do have T5s. Grab ourselves a new T5, wear the glove just so you don't get the oils from your skin on the bulb. Swap that back in. T3 bulbs are quiet. These are tiny little guys, and they're fused to the housing that they come in, so don't try and pull them out or swap them from something else. These are the only two I've noticed that seem to be not working. And I just checked all the other ones. Everything else looks fine. So we're gonna start with this, but I do have a couple spares of each. I found the key barrel location a bit weird to get used to in this car, so I've also made a design for a glow-in-the-dark ring to go around it, which kind of simulates the green LED ring that some other Toyotas got. Like the shifter bushings, I'll leave a link to my site below. Let's see, overdrive switch. Working. I do have an airbag problem, apparently, so that will have to be investigated, but we're just going to try and start the car first. If I've done this right, I've pulled the EFI fuse and relay out. Shouldn't pump fuel yet, so we can turn it over and build up enough oil pressure. Then I can put those back in we'll make sure the injectors aren't leaking, we'll make sure the power steering's full enough, and then we can actually start it. So Sam, you can go ahead and hit the key, and we'll see what happens. If it starts, just shut it off straight away. Okay. Light off? Yep. Beautiful.
Back on now, but it was off.
Okay, do it one more time.
Yep.
Back off?
Yep.
All right, where are we? Power steering. Still looks pretty full, so yeah, I think we'll just get it running. EFI. So now, put it to the second position, but don't crank it. And I'm just gonna try and check the injectors. I feel like I can hear something. I just don't know if it's the fuel pump. Can't smell anything here. Yeah, I can't hear it priming. I don't know. Well, should we just try and start it? Everything else should be all right. I think let's start it, and if something's wrong or it sounds terrible, just kill it straight away.
Okay.
Go ahead, yeah, try it. Nearly. Ooh, try again.
That's me holding it.
Are you on the throttle? Are you off the throttle? Yeah. I can smell petrol.
We didn't catch on fire, so.
That's a start. What? Fluid? Oh.
What's that? Is that fuel? That's fuel.
Is it?
Yep.
Well, we found a fuel leak. Let's take care of that. All right, we had a couple of issues getting it started up for the first time there. Massive fuel leak, which you saw. One of the O-rings in that kit I bought had a bit of a thin spot to it and it was just letting tons of fuel past it. All of that fuel was from that one little O-ring. So I just took them all out and swapped them after that with some O-rings from a different kit. We also learned that the fuel pump doesn't prime with the key like most cars. If you want to get it running without the engine on, you have to short out these two pins on the diagnostic port in the engine bay. We just stuck a paper clip in there and we could test the injectors before putting it all back together again. Then we had that airbag light. So there's another diagnostic port under the steering column. You can short out these two pins and it will make the light flash and it'll tell you what codes the car has. For me, it was both the driver and passenger pretensioner in the seatbelt. These pretensioners were a bit difficult to source because not only do they have to be from an airbag equipped 90 series, which is already on the rare side, it has to be a facelift model from mid 1999 to 2002 because the part number is different. On top of that, they obviously need to be working electrically, which mine aren't, and they can't be from a crash car because they will have gone off. And I hunted around for a few days. I was just about to give up and buy a new pair for $1,600 when a local wrecker came in clutch. $100 each, massive financial and literal lifesaver, so I swapped those in. They're the wrong color, so at some point I'll probably send them off and get the webbing replaced and swap on the old buckles that I have that are the right color, but for now I'm just going to use them. They work, and there's a lot of other things I want to do to this car first. So aside from the shocks, this car is now pretty much mechanically sorted. I've been driving around for about a week. Seems pretty good. It's had a wheel alignment and it's ready to go for some stock off-roading. I want to see what it can do before I start modifying it just so I can work out where the weak spots are. But before I do that, I want to detail it. I know that sounds counterproductive, but here's my reasoning. Right now, this Prado has 25 years of dirt and grime buildup inside and out. And if I go off-roading before cleaning it, it's going to make that detailing video less authentic because it'll kind of just look like I dumped mud on it and said, oh, first clean in 25 years. So as much as I want to go off-road and see what it can do, gonna hold off for now and get it cleaned up first. Plus, it'll look mint on camera. I think that'll be cool. Anyway, that's enough for this video. We're over an hour now, so I reckon let's wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. The algorithm and I both really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time for the detailing episode.